Hi everyone, my name is Chloe Messdaghi and I am the president and co-founder of WoSEC, which is Women of Security, and I also head the SF Bay Area chapter. And today we're dedicating to bug bounty. People are always curious, what is bug bounty? How do I get involved? And also, if you are a bug bounty hunter yourself, don't worry, we're also making sure that you have something to learn too. With me, I have Katie, who is also known as InsiderPhD. She has given talks for BugCrowd. And also, I think you've done some stuff with HackerOne as well. You did something for women hackers. And she has an incredible YouTube channel, and she's done so many great workshops for us. And I love her and everything that she does. So I'm so honored to have her. And she's going to tell you a little bit more of how to stick to going through bug bounty and how to stay in. A lot of us lose our passion and drive when doing it because sometimes it'll take days, weeks to find something. And even the best hackers in the world, the best hunters out there will run into the situation. He's like very common. So don't be disappointed when you first start. It happens to all. After she gives her talk, I may give you a talk a little bit about if you are very, very beginner in bug bounty, what to expect. What is bug bounty, how it came about, and also the legal situation involving bug bounty. And also, if you are a very beginner and you kind of want to get into it, you're not technical enough, don't worry. My talk will also touch on that. So Katie, I'm going to let you kick it off and go for it. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A and also do the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it. Good luck, Katie. Go for it.
Thank you. Well, what a great introduction. You might be thinking from this, wow, Katie, you do a lot of things. And the truth is, I'm allergic to saying no to people. I am one of people, if I get an opportunity, I go for it. So my talk is called Sticking With It, How to Choose a Target and Stay Motivated. And this is kind of directed in two ways. One, to people who are just getting into bug bounties, who find that they feel really demotivated because they just go from place to place and can't find anything or just don't know where to start. But I hope that if, even if you're not necessarily 100% interested in bug bounties, I hope you find something useful in the idea of staying motivated, especially in something like InfoSec in general, where we do a lot of complex technical things. And actually, sometimes it can be really easy to feel super demotivated by what we're doing. So Chloe already gave me a kind of cool introduction, but I'm going to introduce myself because I can. So my name is Katie. I'm a PhD student. That's my day job. And I do kind of machine learning and cybersecurity as my day job. I'm probably better known for being a bug bounty hunter at this point, although I would love to be known as a PhD student. And my PhD isn't really related to bug bounty hunting at all. But primarily what I do is I teach people how to get started in bug bounty. So really beginner friendly stuff, taking you from I'm interested in bug bounty, but how do I do it, from to kind of more complex topics. I primarily make it via YouTube videos, although I've done several talks and workshops. Like I said, allergic to saying no. If I get an opportunity, I just say yes. I have a degree in computer science, obviously, because I'm doing a PhD. But really in security, I'm self-taught. I was taught as kind of a developer. I had an interest in data science. I was employed as a data scientist before my PhD. So really security, I kind of got in with my PhD. I'm not like someone who always aspired to be in security. I kind of accidentally ended up here, and I'm not really sure how to get out. Can someone please send me some help? Right, so this talk is kind of best encapsulated by a meme, and I'm sorry, this comes across very, how do you do, fellow kids? So how do you do, fellow internet desonins? One of those words is correct. Sorry, it's 2 a.m. here. So a lot of the time, we deal with bug bounties. We're very easily like looking at the next thing we can do. And actually choosing something can be hard. Staying with it can be even harder. So when we look at bug bounties, we're looking at a specific target. We might be looking at, big company A, and suddenly little company B comes, we notice it, flashing invite, we're like, yes, I want to have a go at that, but I promise I'll go back, and then you never do. So I'm going to talk about two things. One is really motivation. So how to stay motivated, what motivation is, and how that kind of relates to the idea of bug bounty hunting specifically. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about choosing targets in bug bounty, how to choose the right target, how to get started, kind of picking something to go with, right? And then I'll end up with some kind of parting words of how to recover motivation. So that's my structure. It's in 3 parts, a beginning, middle, and end, much like every other story you've probably ever heard of. So let's talk about motivation. And really, I kind of want to focus on these 2 key questions. What is motivation and what motivates us? When I say us, I mean what motivates you? And that's what I'm going to ask you. I want you to take some time as I'm speaking about motivation to answer this question for yourself. You don't have to put it in chat. You don't have to tell anyone. Just have a think and tell me what, don't tell me, but have a think about what motivates you. So what about, your job motivates you? What about the community stuff you do motivates you? What about your crafting motivates you, right? Don't just limit it to just InfoSec, but kind of what overall makes you happy, what makes you want to continue things. And I'm going to hope that when I talk about this and I do this section, this question will actually, and the answer you give will be more concrete. So I'm going to talk about my favorite video. This is my all-time favorite video. It's called Damn Pink Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. It's done by the RSA, which is this kind of institute in the UK, which makes these animated videos. And it was uploaded in 2010, and it looks like it was uploaded in 2002. The quality is terrible. It looks like a potato, but it's a really, really good video. And for those who probably don't have 10 minutes to watch this video while I'm talking, this is kind of the too long didn't watch version. Money as a motivator only works to get the issue of money off of the table. Once you get paid enough to pay your rent, your food, maybe some like little expenses, a holiday, a vacation, maybe a little, treat for yourself. Once you have the issue of money, it's not a problem anymore. It doesn't work as a motivator. And it especially doesn't work when you ask someone to do complex cognitive tasks. So with bug bounties, you often see people buying a car because they've earned $100,000 and they've done like 5 minutes of work, apparently, according to themselves. And if you see that and you go, yeah, I want to get into bug bounties, or even InfoSec in general, right, for the money, it's not going to work. It's a great reward. It makes you feel valued. It shows kind of you're impactful, whether that's finding an impactful bug or being impactful to an organization. It's a terrible motivator. Not only really because bug bounties are hard, but because we have this kind of trifecta of issues that surround motivation. So what are our good motivators? Well, it's these 3. We've got autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Now let's go through what each one is, because I think it will help. So when we say autonomy, we're not talking about autonomous cars. That's actually the opposite of autonomy, because they don't get to choose what they want to do. They just kind of have to follow an algorithm. So autonomy is working on what you want, when you want, how you want, with who you want, as long as you're getting results. So as long as you're doing your job, you should be able to do your job in whichever way works for you. That's the general idea. And bug bounty in general does this really well, right? Because in bug bounty, you don't work 9 to 5. You just work when you want, you work with who you want. You don't have to sort of follow any kind of like distinct way of doing things like you would in, say, traditional pen testing. However, when you start to look at what other people are doing and say, okay, I'm going to emulate that. And when I say emulate that, I mean, I'm going to emulate that to the letter. I'm going to do exactly what they're doing. Then you lose that autonomy. But for the most part, bug bounties are actually quite good at this one. This is where we with the next 2 is when you kind of have to have something more. So the first one here is purpose. Now, I'm not talking about this idea of, you love it, you're great at it, you're paid for it, the world needs it, that's your purpose. I'm really talking about the feeling of contributing something greater than yourself. So for bug bounties and InfoSec, we might think of that as contributing to the safety of the internet or the safety of other users. If you use something like Uber and that they have your data, you might feel quite motivated to ensure that your data, and along with everybody else's, is protected. Whether that's contributing to the wider community, that's something that really motivates me, is knowing that I don't make videos because I really like making videos, because they're actually quite hard to make, but instead because I want to contribute to the wider community. I want to leave my mark, as it were. So the first one is purpose. And that's really something that when we get into bug bounties and you're only in there for the money, that's when it becomes really hard to motivate yourself. And the next one is mastery. So I'm not talking about the Master, famous villain from Doctor Who, and I'm sorry if you're not British because this joke probably doesn't make any sense, unless you're a bit of an Anglophile. So mastery is really the feeling of getting better at something. It's that incremental improvement of your skills, right? It's that feeling that, you look at something you did a year ago and it looks terrible and it doesn't work, or you didn't really understand what you were doing, but now you can do it really well. I actually have, where's my example? Okay. I brought an example with me. So I've learned throughout quarantine to crochet. And this is my first crocheted square. And you can see it looks super lumpy. There's lots of big holes in it. And now these are the squares I can make thanks to quarantine. So it's that feeling. That's that feeling of getting slightly better at something and not just kind of stagnating. So example in like bug bounties might be finding a new bug that's in a class you haven't found before. It's learning and executing new techniques. In the wider InfoSec kind of community, it's really thinking about, learning something new, going to conferences, listening to talks, and not just passively agreeing with what someone is saying, but actually engaging with that material and really absorbing it. So what does this really tell us, and what's the point of these slides? When we think about motivation, we need all three. We can't just have one without the other. If we lose our drive in one area, we will lose our motivation. If you don't find a bug, you don't feel like you're progressing, you lose that idea of mastery. You feel like you stagnated, that you can't find anything. If you're not rewarded for a bug because, something was out of scope or there was no monetary reward, you don't feel like you've actually contributed anything. You kind of lose purpose as a motivator. Not being able to use your preferred hacking techniques. Maybe you're working on a program which has, it's an IoT program, but you don't like hacking on IoT stuff. You can't work in your preferred way. You lose that idea of autonomy as a motivator. And some of these we can fix. And I hope that in this talk, if you do feel like you're losing some of these, we can talk about ways of fixing it. So with all that, I want to ask you again, what motivates you? And I'd be really interested to know if your answer has changed. Has that gotten kind of more concrete for you about what motivates you? Has it given you something to think about? Are you now not sure? I'd be really interested to hear how it's changed if it has. And I kind of want you to continue thinking about this. And if you do feel demotivated with really anything in your life, but specifically when it comes to kind of InfoSec or bug bounties, what is actually demotivating you? What have you kind of lost in the way? And hopefully I can kind of regain that or help you regain that. So I'm going to talk about choosing a target. So when we talk about bug bounties, we're often left with like these big companies, we've got Tesla on one side, Verizon Media on the other, the US Department of Defense, we've got Uber, we've got Etsy. How do you pick which one to start with? And there's lots of things to consider, right? We could consider, what's in scope, whether it's something large. So if it's star dot everything they own. I think the US Vulnerability Disclosure Program has every domain ending in .mil. And there's hundreds of those, right? Is you working in a public program or a private program? So in a public program, anyone can submit a bug. In a private program, you get an invite with everybody else. How is a team to work with? If you're just starting out, you don't want a team that's going to be passive aggressive towards you. You don't want a team that's going to be dismissive. And you want to make sure you feel valued for your work. And really some other things to consider, what is the competition like? Are you likely to find a bug if everybody's hacking on something? Are you going to be able to do the techniques you want to do? And really, how do you play to your strengths when you don't know what your strengths are? So I'm kind of going to go through these kind of 4 points here. The first one is what's in scope. So there's so many different things you can have in scope. You could have domains like a website or a web app. You can have other where it's not really related to a specific asset, but it's just like look, this is every AWS thing we have. This is our S3 bucket. Android Play Store, Android apps. Sometimes it will be, or iOS stores, iOS store. Sometimes you'll see them as IPA, which is the iOS one, APK, which is the Android kind of extension, or Test Flight, which is Apple's like app program thing. And then source code, whether or not you've got code to review, and then hardware/IoT, where you're dealing with physical devices. There's a lot of things that can be in scope, right? There's not just one thing. Like even for this one, we've got TransferWise. We've got their website, we've got their iOS app, we've got their Android app, we've got an API, we've got their infrastructure. So what you have to consider with this is what you're actually interested in hacking. Do you want to focus on web app pen testing? Do you want to focus on mobile stuff? If you already use AWS, is that a kind of thing you could pivot into in doing this for bug bounties? So one thing that comes up quite a lot is, should you be doing mobile or web? Now, if you do mobile, you have less competition overall. Not many people hack mobile apps. In fact, I would say if you're interested in getting into bug bounties and you're not necessarily know anything at the moment, you're quite a beginner, you should probably get into mobile app pen testing. It's very good to start with. And you've got web, where you have more competition, but it's more accessible. There's still plenty of bugs to find on web. You're just going to end up with finding there's more competition out there. And when we look back to like everything we can hack, I'm not even talking about like recon stuff where you look at S3 buckets. I'm not even talking about source code or IoT stuff. If you already have a specialism in one of these, hack that fundamentally. But if you're not sure, mobile, web, I'd pick mobile if I were you. And you have bug types as well. So you have the technical bugs that all are acronyms. Your CSRF, your SSRF, your XSS, your RCE. So your cross-site request forgery, server-side request forgery, cross-site scripting, remote code execution, those ones that sound really technical and cool, that require, the black hoodie, the binary on the screen kind of levels of hacking. And you've also got non-technical bugs as well, where you've got IDORs, which are a bug where you just change an ID and then that can change, you can access something you shouldn't be able to for your user. You have information disclosure, where you just get back a ton of information you shouldn't be able to see. You get business logic errors, which is just a flaw in the application. And often programs will say, actually, we're looking for these specific types of bugs. And if they're not interested in the types of bugs you think you can find, whether or not you've got a technical background or a non-technical background, then it's not necessarily worth staying on that program, right? Or choosing that program, because there's no point, if you do find a bug, having one that's just not impactful. Now, luckily enough for the wannabe bug bounty hunter, the most common bugs actually just get published by HackerOne and BugCrowd. They just tell you which bugs to look for. So if you're like starting out and you don't really know what to look for, they just tell you. HackerOne have a blog called HackerOne Top 10 Most Impactful and Rewarded Vulnerability Types, which is, as it says on the tin, the most rewarded vulnerability types. And another consideration might be what experience you have. If you've got the kind of classic kind of pen testing where you're writing exploits, maybe you kind of looking on the RCE end. It's not necessarily a beginner-friendly bug for people who have got that background in web app pen testing. But if you have that background, you could really kind of use that to your advantage. And you've got scope size. So scope is the things you can hack against. So a larger scope means there's more things to hack against. So if we look on this image here, star.infinity and star.comcast.com, that means any subdomain under that is in scope. Now, a larger scope means more things to hack on. You've got probably a dozen assets under each of these star dot. And that gives you a large attack area, which can be great because you might find a lot of low-hanging bugs. However, actually, sometimes in a smaller scope, a lot of people tend to avoid them because they think, oh, large scopes are better because I've got more things to hack on. But it can be really hard when a scope is interwoven. So what I mean when I say that is if you've got two assets, you've got an authentication asset and just a website. If you're going to the authentication every time to another website, and each of these websites are connected in some way to each other, and then there's something else, like there's a mobile app which is connected to both of them, and the authentication, and then it's connected to something else, right? Maybe it's connected to Google. You're just ending up with this kind of really complex setup here where it can be really hard to decide, okay, this website is my scope, because actually you've got the rest of the application to deal with. So when I say interwoven scope, I'm talking about one of these where you end up having like tons of different services that all pipe into one another. And it can just be hard to understand. And quite a lot of an advantage of getting into bug bounty and doing web app pen testing is being able to understand what you're actually looking at and what you're reading. And then you have public and private programs. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what you pick. A lot of people will say private programs are better because nobody else is looking for bugs there. But actually, everyone is so interested in private programs, they forget about the public programs. If I were you, I would pick something you already use. You already understand how it's supposed to work. You already understand what the boundaries of the application are. Public or private, just do it. My first bug, I started in June last year, so it's now been a year since I've been hacking, was in Uber, one of HackerOne's big customers, and I found a bug in one of their core applications. You can totally find stuff on public programs, 100%. And then you've got how's the team to work with. Quite a big consideration for like the top-notch bug bounty hunters are going to be how much they pay. But actually, quite a good thing to look at for beginners is how much they pay. If we look here and we say, how much are they paying per vulnerability, how often they rewarded vulnerabilities, what's the average payout, you can see what level of vulnerabilities they're getting. You can see how many unique ones there are, how many total, you can see what they found. And actually, considering that this one is a $300 average payout and the lowest bounty is $100, a lot of low risk issues are being reported. Now, one thing to say about this is, okay, if low risk issues are being reported and rewarded, they probably exist. You can also use the same logic and go, someone's already found them. But actually you shouldn't, when you're searching for your first bug, you shouldn't really be thinking about other people so much. You should be thinking about yourself. Be very selfish, because finding a bug, despite whether or not it gets rewarded with a bounty or not, feels really good. And it's really good as a motivator, even if you just get, sorry, it's a dupe. So some of the important ones that I think are worth looking at is stuff like what severity bugs might be being submitted. You also have vulnerabilities rewarded / known issues, which gives you an idea of how new a program is. The newer the program, the less bugs have been reported, which means there might be more bugs that exist that are kind of what I like to call low-hanging fruit. That's not to say they're easy to find, they're just easier to find if you're a beginner. And then actually validation within X days, having that kind of, how often you have to sit there and ask for updates. Really, quite a lot of people think bug bounty works like this, where you've got a human and you've got a big corporation and you ask, money please, and then they give you the money back. They give you the money, and then that's it. Your relationship is now terminated because you're happy and the business is happy. But actually, you end up going, I found this. Can you give me some more info? Yeah, here's some more info. Oh, that's interesting. How do you do it? And especially for some vulnerabilities, you see even the triage team asking the person who found it for help. And what really helps with this are disclosures. And they can really give you an insight in how a team is to work with. So here we can see some, where's my Oh, there we go. Here we can see one of these where we've got this person apologizing for the fact they don't speak English very well. And then, the staff member, the triager, tries to be clearer and try and explain it the best they can. And this person still is having trouble understanding because they don't speak English that well. And again, they're trying to really communicate with the hacker and not just leave them kind of hanging. And here we actually have them understanding and then saying, well, actually, here's how you could bypass that, for example. And then actually, I don't include this, but further on, these people actually get a bounty. So even, we like to think, okay, they are the arbiter of truth, but actually there's quite a lot of communication that happens behind the scenes, right? That kind of gets you from going from point A to point B. And if you look at these disclosures and you see how professional a team is to work with, how they try and communicate, if they're detailed when they ask for more info, if they're like super engaging, then that can be a great place to start if you're a beginner, working with a team that actually wants to communicate with you and wants to work with you, instead of a team that can be quite standoffish, that maybe is kind of looking for working with those big top hackers and who aren't necessarily interested in not holding someone's hand, but having that different level of communication. So I kind of like to imagine this as kind of a checklist. So I think things that everyone should always look for is a friendly and responsive team. You should have a team that wants to work with you fundamentally. A large enough scope that you can pivot. You don't want to be sitting on one asset for 5 hours when it's a single page web app, because you haven't learned anything really in 5 hours. But maybe if it has a few pages to work with, you can kind of work on one feature or one piece of the business logic and then, go to the next. If you think about, Uber, you've got the Uber app, you've got the Uber Eats app, you've got the restaurant side, the driver app. You kind of have more than just a single page. A scope that isn't completely interconnected, a scope that you can understand, one you can, keep in your brain at all times and understand the boundaries of a system. A team that's interested in the types of bugs you can find. You're not necessarily going to be able to find really technically complex bugs when you just start out. Of course you're not. How are you supposed to? You don't really necessarily know that yet. So working with a team that actually wants to hear from you can be a great advantage. And finally, an interesting attack surface. You don't want to be sitting there being bored by what you're hacking. You want something that has a service you're interested in, or a feature you're interested in, or you think, actually, that sounds super cool. I want to engage with that. And that's what I think you should always look for in a program. You should always be thinking about how the team is to work with, thinking about whether or not this scope is going to work for you, thinking about the types of bugs you're able to find and what they're looking for. And for example, sometimes even the complex technical bugs aren't even the most impactful. If you're dealing with a sandbox system, remote code execution without an escape is it's a non-issue, right? But actually, if you can get an IDOR and bypass some authentication check, that can be a huge issue. If you're in especially a sensitive domain, if you're in medical stuff, if you're able to get an information disclosure where you can see, I don't know, the medication somebody else is on, that's huge. The impact of that is massive compared to an RCE on a sandbox server. So impact isn't necessarily the same depending on what you find and where you find it. And that's really important to consider. And then you've got things that I think you can decide. Assets that play to your strengths. If you already are a developer, maybe you want to do source code. If you think, okay, I want to learn mobile apps, pick a target that has mobile apps in it. If you want to do web, pick web. Don't just go, oh, I'll hack that one because it's the first thing I saw. Pick ones that kind of play to your strengths. And once you get more experience, you decide, actually, I know what I want to do. You can then play more to your strengths. And once you start to understand what you want to hack and how you can hack and what you're good at, then you could really decide to play to your strengths better. And then a public program or a private program, whichever one you're more comfortable with. Like I said, it really doesn't matter. You'll find bugs on both. And then as an addendum here, we can think about motivation. So we should be thinking about does it let you, is it challenging? Is it something where your skills are going to be tested? If you're stagnating and just doing the same thing again and again and again, well, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel motivated. You're not going to feel important. You're not going to feel like you're contributing to anything. Does it let you hack the way you want? Are you able to use the techniques you're comfortable with? Are you able to try kind of things that you're interested in trying out? And does it interest you? Is it something you actually want to contribute to the safety of? Is it giving you that inner purpose of feeling, yes, I want to hack that, that's important to me? And I should say, I have way more information on these ideas in particular on this video, which is finding your first bug, choosing your target, which goes into way more detail, and also here has a practical part where I kind of demonstrate how you could use these to actually evaluate a program. Right, so we've talked about motivation, we've talked about choosing a target. Let's talk about when to give up. It's really important, I think, for everyone to realize that giving up is perfectly normal. There is no shame in giving up, assuming you're giving up for the right reasons and with the right kind of idea behind it. And this is where I'm going to join together this idea of choosing a target and also of motivation, but also bringing in ideas of failure, because I'm a Brit. And if you know anything about British people, we're not very optimistic. It rains all the time here, okay? You have sunny California, you're all happy with nice weather. Here it rains, it's cloudy. We're all a little bit cynical. So I think it's really important to talk about failure and what to kind of expect from failure. So first off, when you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't give up just because it's hard. Sorry, bug bounties, InfoSec, it's technical. It's not simple. It's not straightforward. It's really hard. And sometimes, you know, it can take a really long time. You can get really confused. You don't feel very rewarded. Sometimes that happens, and that is just a fact of life for bug bounty hunting and for InfoSec in general. Sometimes you'll do something and nobody will care. And that is just part of the process. And again, things do take a long time. You will get confused. You'll have no idea what you're doing. Does anybody really know what they're doing though? Everyone is confused. And that's not a reason to give up on either learning bug bounties or being part of the community. So I want to kind of give you some affirmations. You will get duplicates of your issues, 100%. Nobody goes without getting duplicates. Most bugs, even for people who have the fancy cars and the fancy houses, I've been duped on some of their bugs, right? Just because they're the top hacker because it says so in their Twitter bio doesn't mean they don't get duplicates. And you'll get confused and you'll get stuck. And when that happens, there's an entire community that you can reach out to for help. Bug hunting, it's hard. It can take a really long time to find a bug. And you can be looking at an application for 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days, and you cannot find something. And feeling like this doesn't make you a failure. Like 100%, if you feel sometimes that something is hard, you haven't failed, you're just still learning. And that doesn't mean you should give up. But I think it's important to still have this conversation. I'm not going to tell you that everything you do will always go really well. But I'm going to tell you when you should give up. And there are 2 types. The first is giving up forever and giving up for a little bit. And I'm going to talk about giving up forever first. You should give up on a target when your loss of motivation is directly linked to the program you're hacking on, the bug bounty platform, or bug bounties themselves. If you are hacking on a program and you don't feel like you're being rewarded, you don't feel like you have that sense of purpose, or you don't feel like you can work in the way you want to work, you should totally give up, 100%, because you're not going to magically be remotivated. No one's going to come, you're not going to wake up one day and go, actually, you know what? I do have a purpose. And to give you kind of a recap here, we have mastery, autonomy, and purpose. So I'm going to talk about loss of mastery first. So one of the things that's directly linked in losing your feeling of mastery is the feeling of stagnation. That feeling that you're not really getting any better, you're not learning anything new, you're not progressing, you're kind of sitting there as like a ball of stuff and you haven't really accomplished anything. And the best way to kind of regain this are SMART objectives. Now, SMART objectives are one of the things that fancy like business people and HR know how to use. Or if you're a university student, you've probably been taught this at university. But they're actually really useful. So SMART objectives are goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So what do I mean by that? So specific means that they are very, very specific. So you can't have learn about X or hack Y. They have to be like read this, watch this video, read this paper, read this book, read this chapter on this. You can't have a kind of wishy-washy kind of goal. It has to be specific. Measurable, it means you can measure your progress against it. You know, if you're reading a book and you finish a chapter, you can tell you've progressed because you're not on chapter 1 out of 10, you're on chapter 2 out of 10. If you're watching a video, you know you can measure it by whether or not the video is over. So, and if you just learn something, well, how are you measuring that, right? Are you measuring that against being able to do something, in which case that's your goal? If you're learning cross-site scripting, is your goal then to learn or to be able to pop an alert, right? So you have to be measurable. You then got achievable. So you can't set a goal that you're never going to be able to reach because it's not going to feel good when you inevitably don't reach it. So you have to look and be really critical of your current skill level and be honest with yourself. You're not going to be able to do everything. Realistic, which kind of links into timely. So I'm going to do timely and realistic at the same time. So with timely, we set them as being time bound. We don't just say, I want to learn this eventually. We say, I want to learn, or I want to be able to pop an XSS in a real target in 6 months. Now, when we talk about realistic, we're then going, well, is that actually possible in 6 months? Is that something where you need more time or less time? If you look at your previous experience, is that actually, you know, if you've not got any experience, that might be too high. You might want 7 or 8 months, or maybe a year. Or maybe you want to link that to some other goals, like doing a CTF. So when we lose mastery, this is the best way to regain it, to look at these like making goals, ensuring that your goals are relevant to what you're doing, and meeting those goals, because meeting a goal feels really good. If you've ever like worked with sticky notes, right, you know that when you peel it off, when you scrunch it up into a little ball, it just feels good to do that. And goals are the same, and you can see how far you've come. For example, let's see, these are all my little crochet failures, and I kept them. And I didn't keep them because I think that this terrible strip of whatever it is fantastic. I kept it so I could see my progress, so I could see myself improving. So for me, seeing that is evidence of how far I've come. I can look at where I've been, what I'm doing, and the goals I've already met. Loss of purpose as a motivator, right? Purpose is really specific to you as a person. I can't tell you what your purpose is. I can tell you purposes that other people have, but if you find that actually, you know, the target doesn't match up to your purpose, or bug bounties don't match up to your purpose, or bug bounty platforms don't, that's something where you need to do some soul searching. You need to work out what does make it, like, what does motivate you? What is greater than yourself? What do you want to contribute to? What kind of legacy do you want to lead? And these are not easy questions that, like, I can answer, or anybody can really answer and give you the correct one. It's something you have to figure out what it is for yourself. And there's great ways to look at this. So one thing to look at is, what about your work makes you happiest? what is the best part of doing something for you? Do you feel good, donating to charity? Once you start to think about actually what makes me feel good, you'll start to figure out what your purpose is. So for me, I knew it instantly when I was invited as a mentee to an event, and I sat down and I was helping the other mentees get started. And for me, that's when I knew I wanted to give back to the community, and it was really important to me to have that as a main motivator. So it's not, I can't help you with soul searching. Something you have to do on your own. I recommend journaling though. That can be really helpful. Loss of autonomy as a motivator. If you lose your autonomy and you don't feel like you can work the way you want, just jump ship. If you feel like a program is too restrictive because you need a VPN and you just can't get one set up, if you feel like it's not the right program for you because it doesn't have the right assets that match your skill set, just jump ship. Easy. Just try something else. Problem solved. That one's easy. And okay, the other type of giving up is giving up for a little bit. And when I say this, I'm really talking about being this giving up boomerang. It's giving up and coming back to something afterwards. And this is the type of giving up that I think most people are going to experience. It's okay to take a break from something and come back to it later. They're roadblocks. They're not big gaping issues like soul searching. They're, I'm getting a bit stuck on this. But you should have a plan to resolve it, even if it's kind of a loose plan. So why give up? A bug or a program is beyond your skill level. What's the best way to resolve it? Figure out what you need to learn, what's missing, what does this tell you about your skills? Is this something where you could, in work, for example, benefit from going on a training course? In something like bug bounties, this is where you need to watch a video or read an article or do a CTF. It's perfectly fine to give up if a bug or target is just beyond your skill level. And it's actually really important to recognize that and be honest with yourself and critical of your own skills. Not so much that you're putting yourself down, but just being realistic. And that does mean also being nice to yourself as well. So why give up? You don't have the time to commit to a program or bug right now. Nobody wants, if you have young children, if you have someone to take care of, like a family member, if you have other hobbies, you shouldn't be sitting there trying to put hacking in when actually you just don't have the time to commit at the moment. But you should figure out, when you will have time and plan out what you want to do next. Maybe you don't have time to sit and hack for 5 hours, but could you hack for an hour for 5 days, for example? Could you watch a video here or there? Try and keep up with your skills, even if you've got a kind of limit at the moment. Could you do it later? So why give up? You need some time to think about something. When you're going to go to sleep, I'm going to sleep. I know how to exploit that bug. Every person that does bug bounty full time will have these moments where oh my God, I know how to exploit that. In fact, I've had that moment. It was like my 3rd bug and I was sitting there making a video. And I was just thinking about the video I was making and I realized, hang on, I just found a bug, because I realized that something I was able to kind of get a bug on, like a technical bug, but I wasn't able to exploit impact wise, actually was a bug. The program was shut though, so sad, but it's fine. And if your plan for that is really just to sit on stuff, sometimes you do just need to sit on stuff. As your brain whirs away, it will figure it out eventually. Why give up? You need a break. It is never a bad idea to take a break. If your brain is telling you, I need a break, just listen to it. It's probably right. And a lot of the time we talk about burnout and we talk about mental health issues in the community. Often the easiest solution to avoid it is just to listen to your brain and not push yourself if you're not feeling it. And you're not a failure if you just take a break. You're fine. It's okay. You're not giving up forever. You'll come back to it when you're ready. Right. So it's okay to give up. No, seriously, it really is okay to give up. But you should really understand why you want to give up and kind of explore that in a kind of self-reflective way. Is it that kind of demotivator of, the big ideas of mastery, purpose, autonomy? Or is it just a temporary roadblock? Do you really need to be soul searching, or do you just need a break and do something else for a bit? So kind of my summary here, my takeaways. Bug bounty is not as easy as Twitter would make it seem. Twitter seems to think that you could find a bug in 5 minutes and then you buy a car. You obviously then buy your Lamborghini and you post nice photos of it, and then you post pictures of your nice house. You get on an article, bam, millionaire, easy. But I will say it feels really good to get something working. Like, you get an exploit with a bug and you are basically like, I've never taken drugs. I don't even drink. I can tell you that bug bounty is the best drug one can have. The feeling that something works and you've exploited it, and you've got the master hacker. You're sitting there thinking, I'm a bloody genius. I'm amazing. And then when you get rewarded, you're like, and they think I'm amazing too. So if this lack of motivation and soul searching doesn't really apply to you, don't give up too soon. Stick with it because the rewards are worth it. And I wanted to kind of leave these kind of further reading here. Vicky Lee has this amazing article on why you fail at bug bounties, and Stirk has mental health for better bounties, or how to learn cool stuff, which are, one, a very good article, and two, a very good video. They're both very Googleable, so you'll be able to find them. And my kind of final thought for you all is, you're not a hacking machine. You're a human. You can act like it sometimes. So thank you very much for listening to me. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at InsiderPhD. Here's my Twitter profile. It's kind of old. I took the screenshot a while ago. You can find me on YouTube, InsiderPhD. You can search that. And you can add me on LinkedIn, Katie Paxton-Fear. I'm literally the only person with my name. You won't get lost if you just Google me. So thank you very much for watching. And I'm now going to look at questions and stuff like that because I couldn't look at it during it.
Excellent. Thank you, Katie, so much. That was awesome. All right. So we got a bunch of questions.
Oh my God.
So one is, hi, Katie. I like you took. Do you recommend WAPT or WAPT-X or eLearn security to reinforce knowledge about web applications? And what advice can you give about web programming to better understand when looking for a bug bounty?
Oh my God. Okay, right. So my first thing is that you don't have to pay any money to do bug bounties. You 100%, you really don't need to pay money. You can learn all of this for free. 100%. If you're interested in learning this, use the free resources. The only paid resource that I recommend if you're at that level is perhaps Pentester Lab Pro, but that comes with quite a few caveats, that it's a CTF and it holds your hand a lot, and you have to be the right kind of learner for it. You really don't need to pay for learn bug bounty. And I'd actually say, if somebody is offering you like money and saying, yeah, you can learn web app pen testing, just give me a lot of money, they're probably lying to you, because it's not something you can just throw money at to learn. And as for web programming, so interesting enough, I was a web programmer. Ironically, people confuse my name for Insider PhD as in the doctoral program, Insider PHP as in the language. I have to put in my tags on YouTube, PHP as well, because people type out the wrong thing. I'm actually a PHP programmer by like trade, if you want to use the term. And it wasn't until I started doing bug bounties that I was like, oh no, I understand how that bug happened. Just because of my like background, I'm like, I've made that mistake. I have a lot of empathy for developers now. But how to get better is just make websites, like make stuff. If you're stuck for ideas, clone other people's stuff. one of my big projects on GitHub was clone Facebook. And the amount of idles in that program, I wouldn't do a bug bounty program for that. I'd go broke in literally seconds. But yeah, make stuff. Make clones of Twitter, make clones of Facebook. Anything that has complex user interaction can be great practice for just testing your web development.
All right, next question is, what are the websites you use to learn bug bounty? By the way, the person who asked this question, I will also touch on that, on what to get into, the basics, but I'm curious, Kitty, what are some things that you use to learn?
So I'm very fortunate that I have a developer background. So quite a lot of the idea of how the web works was not new to me. I was quite familiar with it. Quite a lot of what I learned was through practical experience. So I actually, for my first bug, I didn't even use CTFs. I'd used the CTF after I found my first bug. But primarily for me, it was that kind of hands-on practical knowledge. How does burp work? What can I do with it? How can I kind of have that? Nowadays, I read a lot of Twitter. Twitter is really great because there's a bug bounty hashtag, and I follow a lot of people, and I just get educational content arrive to me now. It gets delivered onto me. So I read a lot of Twitter.
Oh God, Twitter is like my place to find anything. It's either that or like there are some Slack private groups that I love. That's how I find out about the latest tools. Okay.
There's also a good newsletter as well, Pentesterland, but I think that's now Integrity Bug Bites Forever. Yeah. But that's really good. I read Twitter. I'm not working. I'm not procrastinating. I'm researching.
You definitely aren't. I mean, you are past midnight right now, aren't you not?
Oh yeah, it's like, what time is it? It's nearly 3 a.m. here.
See, the question I had, which is like, are you an early bird or a night owl? Clearly night owl.
Or early bird, just very, very early.
Yeah, I can't do early. Like, I can't do what people do before 8. I'm like, what is wrong with you? I wish I could be you. I love those people that go out and run at like 5 a.m. It's amazing.
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh my God, teach me the skill that you have. For me, it's like, I get tired around 10 and then I look at something, next thing you know, it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. I'm like, oh great, there goes my evening.
But that's not procrastinating. No, that's research.
Exactly. Researching important things such as things.
It's the latest drama that's hit the community. That's my weakness. Spend forever reading those Twitter threads about the drama. I can't help it.
Oh no, when I see gossip on Twitter, I literally just like, and that's it. I'm done with Twitter for the day. I can't handle gossip. Okay, another question. Any thoughts about getting into bug bounty full-time? Don't other people do bug bounty full-time? Kitty, you want to answer that one?
So I obviously don't do bug bounty full-time. I do a PhD full-time. A PhD is not like undergraduate where you can not work. PhD, you have to work 9 to 5 to get it. It's like a regular job. I get paid like a regular job as well. I get salary. So it's not my full-time job. But I do know people, so I'm going to speak on their behalf. Quite a lot of the people prefer not to do bug bounty full-time because it's a really insecure income. It's any kind of freelance job, apart from in some freelance jobs, you can't spend like 5 hours and you can bill a client for 5 hours of work. You can't bill a bug bounty program for 5 hours of work without a result. And that can really lead to this situation where you have 1 month of making thousands, right? And the next month you make nothing. And the month after you make nothing. And you can sit there and be like, oh, it's fine. This is enough to get me through 3 months. And then you're on month 4 and you're like, I haven't found anything this month. There's a really great article by a guy called Alex. I've forgotten his username on Twitter. I'll see if I can dig it up and I'll retweet it again.
Excellent.
But he goes into his finances as a full-time bug bounty hunter. He primarily makes all of his money at HackerOne live events. And he's making like thousands of pounds at once. And then he has to figure out the best way to budget that for long periods. So most people don't do it full-time. Other people who do bug bounty full-time are looking at they do a lot of automation. So even though they do it full time, they're really not doing it full time. They're really just picking up what they can. And that doesn't really make them feel good.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I mean, we both know people that do bug bounty full time, and then also those that were like, we're doing full time, and then they realize, I can't keep doing this. Even though I'm making a good amount of money, I still need to have an everyday job and work from home. Like, that's the one thing I've definitely noticed.
yeah.
Okay. Hi, Katie. Thanks for this talk. Between Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, or Pen Tester Lab, which should be the best platform for a beginner in InfoSec?
It depends what your goals are.
Yeah.
If you want to do the OSCP, Hack the Box, because it covers basically the entire course material. If you're interested in bug bounties, you're maybe looking at Pen Tester Lab because it's a little bit more hands-on than Try Hack Me is. And it kind of guides you through quite a lot. Now, here's my caveat to recommending any of these. A lot of CTFs will tell you the answer. And that doesn't really help you learn. It's just giving you the correct answer and expecting you to do it like a little drone. So I don't usually recommend CTFs. Actually, I have like an entire video dedicated to like learn how to learn and where to start and what programs I recommend. But primarily I recommend getting as much hands-on experience on real or close to real targets as you can. Using CTFs as learning material, not as a kind of like substitute for it.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because I think there are definitely CTs out there that help you in your job. But if you're trying to do bug bounty work, there's only a few platforms, but usually those are not they're not sold to person, it's instead sold to business. And they can actually help you train really fast. But if there is a CTF and you're a very beginner and you want to do bug bounty, HackerOne has a CTF, which I recommend people trying out. But yeah, I would first say like CTFs are great. I'm just going to go into it when I do my talk a little bit. I'm not giving you the answers yet. You're going to have to stay and wait.
The Hacker 101 CTF is really good. If you can do the post book level and get all the flags on that level, that's when I would say you're ready to try an actual target to see the difference between how easy that is to hack and how difficult a real target is.
How many hours a week did you spend at the beginning at bug hunting versus how many hours do you spend bug hunting now?
So right now, I don't have a lot of time to do bug hunting. I'm in the part of my PhD where I'm doing like a ton of research. So I spend a lot of time basically working. So I just don't have like the mental energy to sit at work and do a lot of complex technical stuff and then come home and do a lot of complex technical stuff. I'm hoping actually to have some more time when I start writing my thesis, because then I won't have any technical things and that will fill the void in my life that is the lack of technical stuff. So how many hours a week did I spend? I don't know. When I first started bug hunting, how it kind of worked for me, if people don't really know my story, is I was very fortunate to be invited to a HackerOne live event. Oh, actually, I have my little, I was invited to this one in London. And then I must have been home for about a week from that as I'm starting to do the CTF. And I got invited to Vegas. And after Vegas, I got invited to Vancouver. And after Vancouver, I don't know if you can see it over there, but then I got invited to LA. So when I was going from live event to live event, I was doing quite a lot of hacking every week because I was going from, I wanted to make the most of my time, obviously going to the States or Canada. I don't know if I could quantify it. Like some of my bugs I've got in literally 5 minutes, and I'm not even joking. When I was in Vegas, went to my mentor's hotel room and I was just sitting there. I was like, oh yeah, we can hack together. And I was there for about 5 minutes. I was like, guys, I think I found something. And they were like, no, you haven't. Okay, let's take a look. And I had actually found something in 5 minutes of hunting. And that's sometimes what bug bounty is like. Sometimes you search for 5 minutes and you get $1,000. Other times you search for 5 days and you get nothing.
Or weeks, just weeks on it.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. If people stick around, we'll have more Q&A. I want to make sure that we have enough time to go through the next talk, and I have a feeling that some of it will answer your questions. Katie, if you don't mind sticking around for another 30 plus minutes, that'd be great.
Yes, I'll be around. If people have additional questions for me, I'll follow me on Twitter, send me a message that says, I want to DM you. I will answer DMs on Twitter. I just have them closed because women in security tend to get a lot of DMs that are quite hateful. So I have to turn them off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dear
So
God. It's either
I can't.
hateful or it's like, hi there. And then you respond like, hi. And then they respond asking like, are you single? Are you taken? Are you married?
Oh my God.
Or better
I got
yet,
so many ones.
you're
So beautiful.
What about
I was like, you have
it's like,
I have a cartoon avatar.
oh God. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so I have DMs closed, but if you message me saying, Katie, I'd like to DM you, I'll open my DMs. That's fine. I keep them closed for the weirdos.
Love
but
it.
I'm happy for it.
I love it. Okay. Katie, can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna play from the start. You still can see my wonderful screen?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, you guys, I'm gonna go into this talk. Gotta catch them all, bug bounty. I'm going to close my video because I'm able to focus a little bit more, and there's a lot of legality stuff throughout this whole talk, so I want to make sure that I cover everything. So I promise to put my camera on at the end. All right, so let's talk about this. If you do not know who I am, my name is Chloe Messdaghi. I'm VP of Strategy over at Point3 Security. But on what the main takeaway for this event, this is a WoSEC event, and I'm glad to have you guys. And I'm hoping many of you guys are my San Francisco folks. I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe. I'm also founder of Women Hackers, organizer for the Hacker Book Club. We meet every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, where we read a book written by the hacker, and the hacker community reads it. And the author does attend, or people that are mentioned in the book will attend. When I'm not doing that, I'm a podcaster for ITSP Magazine's The Uncommon Journey with Alyssa Miller and Phil Wiley. And I'm also a parent to Sherlock and Luna, which are two Shibas. And yes, every single thing about Shibas and the rumors are true. They are cats stuck in dog's body. Anyway, let's go on. So today's agenda, we're going to cover a little bit about the what, the why, and how bug bounty. So if you don't really know anything about bug bounty and you have a lot of basic questions, don't worry, we'll be answering that. Your brain, because you know I'm obsessed with the brain. History of bug bounty, safety first, the best tools to start off with, and then the truth about women in the field. Let's do this. Oh yeah, and I'll take questions at the end. All right, what is bug bounty? It's basically a transaction between submitting a bug and getting paid. Why do we need it? Because the companies need outsider eyes and mindsets to find vulnerabilities, hence the need for crowdsourced security to keep everyone safe. How does it work? Well, depending on how critical the bug is, the amount of paid out is higher, usually. Just note, it must be in scope, and if you are one of those people out there that go out of scope, please don't ever exploit, because you're giving a bad rep to the entire hacker community, so please don't do that. So let's go into a little bit of how the brains are stimulated by it. Besides dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins being created by gamification such as bug bounty, our brains are really stimulated by them. So we're gonna get to know your brain a little bit. And what I want you to focus on is that green shaded part on the left side called the temporal lobe. And on the right side, you see the amygdala and hippocampus. Those are the three parts that you need to know about, because this is where gamification thrives, and bug bounty is gamification. So the temporal lobe overall, the temporal lobe is involved in processing sensory input into derived meanings for the appropriate retention of visual memory, language comprehension, and emotion association. This is where gamification thrives, and is where the amygdala and hippocampus are actually located. So overall, what you should know about the hippocampus and the amygdala is that they are working, they work hand in hand when it comes to doing bug bounty. Amygdala is all about like your response and responding to any memory. This could be short-term, long-term memory. For example, if you're told at a young age through your parents or through the news or on the TV that snakes and spiders are something that you should be scared of, you will always be scared, so you have an emotion attached to it. The amygdala does react in a subconscious way, so meaning you don't even know that what's happening in your brain until it comes to the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain. And as the CEO, it makes the decisions and whatnot. Now, the hippocampus works very well with the amygdala because the hippocampus is known for helping you navigate through memories. It also is a part where you get new memories put into your brain. It's also where you have emotional response. How many of you guys remember your nightmares versus your just regular dreams? Exactly. You're more likely going to remember things that have a higher surge in emotions. It's an emotional response. And so your memory is going to be playing a huge role there because there's an emotion attached to it. Hence why you remember nightmares more than your regular dreams day to day. So we know why our brain loves it, besides hormones and endorphins and chemical reactions, and also your temporal lobe and your amygdala. But there's more that you need to know about it. So the first thing you probably are wondering, when did bug bounty actually ever start? Believe it or not, it was on October 10th, 1995. Netscape launched the very first bug bounty program by offering cash rewards to those who were able to find security bugs in their Netscape Navigator 2.0 beta. And the history of bug bounty, what you should know, and this was Katie Mazuris got this from Bug Crowd at an O'Reilly conference. I think this was back in 2017 or 2018. I could be wrong, but Katie is awesome. The thing that you should know about this chart, it shows how bug bounty really started taking off. So if you remember, Netscape was the first one to really have a bug bounty program in the first place. Other companies started noticing that this is something that they should do too. However, they would do it themselves, meaning that they weren't using BugCrowd, HackerOne, or Synack at that time. They're using themselves and coming up with ways how to have a vulnerability disclosure program or a bug bounty itself. But if I want you to pay attention between 2012, 2013, even though HackerOne is not listed on here in Synack, they came around that same time between 2012 and 2013. The birth of bug bounty platforms really changed everything because when companies were starting to do it themselves, they didn't really know how to do it. And plus, if you work in bug bounties or you do bug bounty work, you notice you get a ton of responses. And this could be a huge problem with your team trying to figure out, okay, how do I fix this? Where do I elevate it? How much of a priority is this fix? And so if you think about it, they needed another person to be there to help manage it. So Synack, BugCrowd, and HackerOne are basically the middlemen of helping out companies and connecting them with hackers in a way that they promise to help out and make sure that they stay within a scope and that they do not exploit. But if it wasn't for the bug bounty platforms, we wouldn't have vulnerability disclosure programs, and we wouldn't have Hack the Pentagon, Hack the Navy, or the Army. So bug bounty platforms, no matter how you stand with them, they were not there to replace jobs. They were just there to support. And I really want to make that really important because bug bounty was not meant to take over jobs. You still need a security team to be on top of everything and be on top of their skills. Bug bounty is just another way to make sure that your team is able to find everything. And if they can't, well, good news is that we're crowdsourced. Quick fact though, but did you know that 93% of the Forbes Global 2000 still do not have a vulnerability disclosure policy or a program yet? And it's sad to think about it because we need that. We need that more than ever before because I don't know about you, but there's times where you find a vulnerability, you want to report it, and you spend hours and days and then sometimes weeks looking for contact information to let someone know. At the same time, you're just scared. We'll dive into that part of fear next. But what I really want to talk about first is the current landscape, because you need to know the legal landscape before you enter this field or if you're in this field already. I would say raise your hand, but I can't see you, so I'm just going to pretend you guys are going to raise your hand. But please put your drink on the table before raising your hand. I don't want you to spill anything on any devices. But anyway, the Equifax breach probably impacted you or someone that you know. But did you know a security researcher warned Equifax that it was vulnerable to a kind of attack that later compromised the personal data of more than 147 million Americans? And Motherboard had learned that 6 months after the researcher first notified the company about the vulnerability, Equifax finally patched it, but only after the massive breach that made headlines had already taken place according to Equifax's own timeline. Capital One. Another example, according to the federal complaint, the breach took place in stages across March and April of 2019, but Capital One only became aware of the problem on July 17th when a security researcher tipped the company to a public GitHub page that was displaying something that awfully looked like private Capital One data. But I want you to take this moment to reflect. What if no one reported the breach? Because in reality, this is the truth. 60% of security researchers do not report vulnerabilities. And everyone, who is that person in the corner? That is Amit El-Azhari. She is someone who has been pushing for safe harbor, but she was also the one who did research this. And this is literally because of the fear of prosecution. And it's really sad because imagine if we didn't really have as many breaches as we did today because security researchers that found something were able to report it in a safe manner that they didn't have to worry about being prosecuted. And that's the thing that we need to think about. So why are they scared? Besides prosecution, looking for contact information for hours, days, and weeks, and reading the policies have become a burden to reporting vulnerabilities. But even if you do everything the most legal way, you still have to deal with situations. And in the US in itself, we still run into these type of situations. After DJI, a drone manufacturer recently launched a bug bounty program by themselves, okay? This was not through a bug bounty program. Two researchers, Sean Malaya and Kevin Feinstein, for the scope of the bug bounty program covers all security issues in firmware, application, and servers, including a source code leak, security workaround, and privacy issue. And they were working on a detailed user guide for it. And Kevin, he confirmed it, and it took them 2 weeks to finally confirm the scope. And he then reported the vulnerability. He was then provided with $30,000 for this finding. However, the agreement of receiving it offered no legal protection for him, so he walked away. The revelations resulted in the company challenging the researchers' findings and seemingly threatening one with a lawsuit tied to Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, claiming he went out of scope. Regardless of the fact, he made sure to confirm the scope. In return, he posted the entire situation of all the conversations with the DJI publicly. And yes, they stepped back then. And you can find it online. He has a blog, and he actually showed all the chain. And it was so embarrassing for DJI because they didn't know that internally they were writing saying, this guy is a problem. We need to silence him. We should probably throw a lawsuit at him. And he did, like, they sent him an email response without really checking to see if that response was in the email chain. So he was able to see that and took photos of it and shared it on. So, if you read this, it is the most embarrassing ever. And this is why I always push people, keep a paper trail. Whatever you do, save your emails, keep a paper trail. It will save you in your life and in your career, always. So if you're ever in doubt of what is the scope, double check. And please just never exploit. Just don't do it. But overall, what I want the main takeaway to be is that there are definitely laws out there that are preventing good hacking in the same way they prevent bad hacking. And we need good hacking. And of course, I'm going to dive into the legal landscape of it. So anti-hacking laws. These are ones that are basically laws that prohibit accessing a computer without authorization or in excess of authorization, also to be used when a researcher goes out of scope. This is the act used to prosecute hacking. And by the way, a really interesting story, the CFAA, also known as the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, it came about in the US because Ronald Reagan watched this movie called War Games. If you've seen it, it's one of my favorite hacker movies. Check it out. He watched it, he freaked out about hackers, and he was like, we gotta do something to prevent these things from happening. There's kids out there that are dangerous. Anyway, so that's what happened, and I'm assuming that's what he said to himself. Then you have the anti-circumvention laws. These are the copyright laws. So basically the right to repair, seeing reverse engineering as a breach of property to some companies. Now, acceptable use policy. Let's just be real. How many of you guys have an Apple product at home? Have you read your terms and conditions? Have you actually read the terms and conditions for anything? Yeah, I thought so. I mean, I've tried a few times. It's too much verbiage. It can confuse anyone, especially if you're not a lawyer, and none of us really are. Oh yeah, by the way, all this, I'm not a lawyer, so please understand that. If you need to talk to someone on the legal side, go to someone that is in the legal area. I just bring awareness to this. But overall, the thing about acceptable use policy is that usually it's jargon that is, if English is your first language, and you still might have problems with understanding everything that you're reading because you're not an attorney and you never studied to be an attorney. But imagine for someone who English is their second language. Exactly, it's not easy. So this is one of the problems that we have ran into, is that when someone's like, oh, let me put some policies out there, you have to read it before you submit anything, or else you might be in a bad zone. That's the unfortunate part, because that's just not how the world works. But overall, language and what's in scope or out of scope when disclosing, or how do I disclose, can be so scary. And the potential indictments especially, it can keep both parties awake at night. And it does for me, I'll tell you that. But to note about is that the program managers, so those are running the bug bounty on the other side for the company or the organization, they're kind of concerned. And the reason for that is that they're asking to be hacked, but not to get hacked badly. And how they conduct and handle situations and researchers report something is something that still is an issue to this day. However, I want you to know that government is all in for this. And that's something to know about, because when government's totally for something, it pushes organizations to also look into it. And not to be so scared of the hacker community. Now, if we can change them with the hoodie idea and their language use, I think we have a shot, you guys, for getting rights at some point in our lifetime. And I know this is a scary subject, so here are some pictures of some wonderful dogs. I did have a cat photo, but it seemed to have disappeared when I made this slide, unfortunately, and I'm sorry, because I like to practice inclusion, and if you are scared of dogs, I am so sorry. This was meant to make you feel calm and relaxed by seeing a bunch of puppies. But if you got scared by this, I will send you a picture of a kitten, just let me know. But overall, the good news is that there are companies that are starting to look into VDPs. And if you don't know what VDPs are, they are vulnerability disclosure programs or vulnerability disclosure policies. And they're looking to improve their legal language, because they know that many people that report things, English is not their first language. So miscommunication can happen, and no one wants to prosecute each other because it's a long, tedious task to do. So think about it in this way. Now, if this is something that you are concerned about, I really do suggest you looking into disclose.io. It's a great resource because disclose.io, it's pushing out the idea of having a simplified language to be used to also state what's in scope, what's out of scope, what's the contact information, what kind of rewards to expect, and also to give periodic updates on the submission that you provided. And so that's the thing I want you to understand. Disclose.io, if you're very scared on hacking on anything, Disclose.io is kind of your best friend in this sense, because they are there to showcase what are the companies that are practicing some sort of safe harbor. And by safe harbor, I mean a bilateral trust agreement between a hacker and themselves. And remember, please keep paper trails. Just keep paper trails for yourself. Now, you have the background. So how do you start? So first thing is Burp Suite. I hate to break it to you, but you got to know everything about Burp Suite. And you don't need to get the pro at all. The community version is just as good, and lots of pro bug bounty hunters still use community. So the most important first step is to download Burp Suite. Get to know Burp Suite very well and get on Portswigger Academy, which really showcases these things. But also read. The web application handbook, I have to admit, it's a little old, but you can get most of that information on Portswigger Academy. I just keep this textbook around because it brings back nostalgic feeling. But it's something cool to have. Web Hacking 101 by Peter Urowski is really good as well. And he came out with, I think just last year, the Real World Bug Hunting. He's an incredible explainer. So if you're really into bug bounty, learn Burp Suite, go on Portswigger Academy, and like really do read those two books, the Web Hacking and Real World Bug Hunting. I highly suggest starting with Web Hacking 101 before you go into the Real World Bug Hunting, because Pete is amazing. Also study. And what does that mean? Check out HackerOne has this program called HackerOne 101, which basically has tutorials and showing and educational modules for you to go through to understand the very, very basics before you start doing bug hunting. They also have, like I mentioned earlier, a CTF that you can use. Now, Bug Credit University also has these educational module videos that you can learn about the basics of everything and even advanced things as well. And last but not least, Portswigger Academy is going to be your best friend. I swear, if you need to learn about Burp Suite, those are the three you need to know. And just do it. Honestly, sign up on HackerOne and BugCrowd. See what's going on in the community. See what's happening. And yes, sometimes it's going to take a while to get a private invite, but just see how it works. Because understanding how it works is how you're able to manage and understand how you can play a better role when you submit anything. And yes, please do check out disclose.io. You need to know your rights. This is super important, and you should only be reporting to companies that support you in what you do. But remember, it comes at a cost. Do not exploit. And I'm going to say this throughout the whole day because I just don't do it. Overview. So sign up for HackerOne and or BugCrowd. Download Burp Suite Community. And yes, if you're wondering which one is better, HackerOne or BugCrowd, to be honest, every single bug bounty hunter is on both. So don't worry about it. Just do it. Download Burp Suite Community. Know your rights, what companies are supporting ethical hackers. Study read the Web Application Hackers Handbook, 2nd edition. Just note you can find out all that stuff on Portswigger. So if you don't want to read a book, that's okay. You can take that one off. But the Web Hacking 101 and Bug Bounty by Pete Urowski is really good. Check out the education platforms such as HackerOne 101, BugCrowd University, Portswigger Academy. And then I didn't say this earlier, but there is an ethical rights petition for hackers. If you go to that link, it's also pinned on the top of my Twitter feed. And the reason for that is we need rights, and this petition, it targets government, organizations, and the media to stand with us. And I need to get 1,000 signatures, and I have been talking to politicians and they're willing to go forward with this. So I need everyone's support. Please share it, sign it, do whatever it takes. We need to get past 1,000 signatures. Now, this is the one part where I usually I stop at the previous slide, but because there are many, many of you that are women out there, there's something that you should know. According to their research, I think it was BugCrowd in 2018, they reported that only 4% identify as women that are hackers in the world. Now, I don't know if this is true or not today studying, but I definitely can tell you there is definitely a lot less women that are hackers than there are men. And there's lots of reason for that. We'll jump into that in a bit. But in return, we just know that less than 1% participate in bug bounty that identify as women. And the reason why is that males have dominated in a sense. They do get aggressive, harassed in online communities. And if you heard a little bit earlier, Kitty and I talking about DMs, we do get awfully different types of DMs that are just not appropriate at all. And that is one of the reasons why we don't, some will turn off their DM, some will go completely offline, or some people will actually have a male's name when they're doing whatever they do. And what I mean by that is that women that do participate, they do use fake male names for protection in the past, and they still do today, just because they don't want to be harassed and annoyed. Also, cyber stalking is something really scary, and I've dealt with it, and I know a few other people probably here have as well. It's scary. Also, lack of representation. I think the more and more women that come out about doing bug bounty, the better and stronger it'll be for other women to see that they can do it too. But also, just in general, we need men to see that, there's women in this field, and they need to learn how to respect. That's like, I feel like the next talk I'm going to give to the bug bounty crowd is how to talk to a woman in InfoSec. Anyway, the next thing is that it is changing though. Women are forming private groups within online communities, and Women Hackers, we actually have a private bug bounty channel. So if you are a Women Hackers member already, just DM me on Women Hackers, let me know that you want to be added to it, and I'll add you to it. And also there's other places as well. There's different forums that women are having, they have private groups within it to mingle with each other, but also know that they're not by themselves. And last but not least, crowdsourcing security support companies are pushing for more women to participate. In other words, they're telling bug bounty programs that they believe in equality, and diversity and inclusion is one of those things that they are pushing forward. And in return, they want to make sure that the people that are reporting vulnerabilities, that are participating in hackathons, are also people that are different than your normal bug bounty hunter, which is not a male. And so it's one of those things that's really good that they're pushing for it, because we need all the help that we can get to have some sort of equity here. I just want to say thank you guys for existing. I know it's a really hard time, and if you're in the Bay Area and everything, I feel you. I'm here with you. It has been a crazy couple of weeks. Just please note that you're not alone in any of this. The hacker community is really great, and WoSEC community has been wonderful. And I just want you guys to know that how I feel so fortunate to have the opportunity to run the WoSEC Bay Area chapter and to be part of WoSEC and to even be giving this talk. And I just want to say thank you guys for existing. I'll put on my camera. Let's do this Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you, Katie. I see that clapping.
The pass, I do it for everybody in the chat, because it was a wonderful talk. It was really great. The reason why I got into bug bounty is actually through some of the diversity stuff that HackerOne is running. And I got to say, do get some really weird DMs, but actually the professional community is so welcoming. It is so nice and so welcoming. And actually, if you're watching this and you're like, actually, when you start to meet the kind of people that I think a lot of those people look up to, who send really rude messages, actually they're super, they want to see women, and they want to see women available, and they've got all the time in the world for people. And I'd actually encourage people, if you want to get into bug bounties and you're worried, what if the community is not going to be very supportive? I can assure you the community is really supportive of getting women in bug bounties, 100%.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, Ben is amazing. Stoke is amazing.
Oh my God, Stuck. He was in the middle of something. I went up to him in Vancouver and I was like, can you teach me about race conditions? And no joke, he had all the time in the world for me. He came down with his laptop and he was talking me through everything. He had so much patience. He was like, yeah, I'm going to go through this with you. And it was so kind. Shout out to Rhinerator, Tom Nom Nom, who were my two mentors.
Oh, Donut's awesome.
Donut's really nice, and his girlfriend's really nice as
well.
well.
Han is amazing.
We share
Shiba photo. If you're on here, I have plenty of more Shiba photos. But Okay, so we got a Q&A. What is the main difference between bug bounties, public programs, and private programs? You need some sort of kind of invitation based on your experience or scores for private programs. This is a great question. So yes, there are times where, okay, first of all, private programs are always invite only. In other words, you're not allowed to disclose the company or what you find or the type of vulnerability that you find. Public programs, you usually can do that, but you want to check with the company before you post anything on a blog or on a tweet, making sure that they're okay with it, because sometimes companies are not okay with it. So just make sure. But the thing to know about public and private program is, yes, you do need an invite. And yes, sometimes it's based on skills or it's referral. So if there's someone who's a high-end person on the bug bounty platform that you're trying to get a private invite on, they can always refer you. So keep that in mind. I know that's not very well-known knowledge, but it totally is true. Referrals work really well.
Also, for some bug bounty programs, actually some program managers will just post on Twitter, hey, I've got some private invites for my programs, anyone want to join? As well as on HackerOne, if you complete the Hacker 101 CTF, you gain points, and then once you get a certain amount of points, it's worth one invite. If you get a private invite and you don't like it, you can reject the invite, fill out a questionnaire, and then you just get another one, and you can keep doing that until you find something that you want to hack on.
Agree 100% on that. So the person who asked, is this going to be recorded? Yes, this entire thing is being recorded. So I will post it and I'll tweet it out and I'll tag Katie in it. So if you follow Katie, she'll probably retweet it and you'll see it. But yeah, and you can share it with your friends, family, and whoever you want to share it with. But I just want you guys to know, like, all you ladies that are on here, non-binary folks as well, I just want you to know that, like, you're totally welcomed, and it's all about who you are connected with. I remember the first year when I was in InfoSec, I was around so many terrible bros in my life, like so bad, like at 10 o'clock at night getting messages from like colleagues saying I can't please my wife. Like, I was just like, what is wrong with this industry? It's terrible. I worked in human rights. This is the worst rights I've ever seen for women. But when I left, I actually almost changed. Like, I was about to leave InfoSec and I found Day of Security. This is a conference. And I walked in a room for the first time and there was like a bunch of women in there. And I never felt so supportive. I got goosebumps everywhere. Like, I was like, I am not giving up. Screw those men. No, I'm just kidding. No hate towards men, but if you are being an asshole, I'm just going to put it out there. Yep, I'm not going to deal with sexist people.
I will say the best part of a conference, you know, it's good when there is a queue for the women's toilets, the women's bathroom. If
Exactly.
you see there's a queue, then you know that this is a conference you want to attend.
But Katie, did you know that was, so when I attended RSA for I think it was 2018 when I went, there was no line for the women's restroom, but the men's had like all around the corner. And I was like, oh, maybe there's a line inside. I opened the door, there's no one in there. And I remembered that was a day when I decided I was going to leave InfoSec. It was literally because of a freaking bathroom line. I kid you not.
It's so telling though, that it just shows like whether women are there or not, like whether they're visible. Because I think there's also quite a lot of women who want to get into InfoSec who see like the way women can be treated and just go, no, I'm done. I have a friend who's an electrical engineer, amazing person. She's so smart, she's so intelligent, she has a master's degree, she does quantum computing, and like, you'd be thinking, that sounds amazing. She doesn't want to do it anymore because she had such a toxic work environment. And that's like, that for me is just so sad, because it's not just she's just one of my friends, but there's going to be loads of people who see InfoSec and who have a terrible experience and go, it's like, I quit.
Yeah.
But I actually think there are so many welcoming communities, and the internet is great because I live in the UK and we're sitting here having a conversation to people in San Francisco, and no longer are borders a boundary between connecting people.
Yeah, in some ways, that's kind of a good thing about the middle of everyone being at home right now through a terrible, terrible time. And 2020 has been like the craziest year ever. But it's one of those things that it bringing more inclusion. So now you're having these online meetups. You're going to have access to virtual conferences. You know how many people have dreamt going to an InfoSec conference and they can't afford it, or it's too far away? Like it's amazing. Like whenever, I feel like what's going to end up happening next year is that when we start having those physical conferences all over again, I'm literally going to ask them every time, are you making this virtual too? And this is so important. We need to have that. There's so many people with all different backgrounds, and they have every right to join InfoSec and be an InfoSec. And it's up to us to make sure that they have access to that. So yes.
I think really important is like parents that have kids, and they're just, especially when we talk about women, people having children and childcare responsibilities, it still often falls on the feminine parent to be looking after children. And you know, children, they have to be cared for. You can't just leave a 5-year-old on their own and go,
no, you cannot do that.
I'm off to the States for a week. I hope that's okay. And I think it's helping that inclusion as well across like gender boundaries.
And that's what we need. We need more of this, because to be honest, I know definitely there are people that feel uncomfortable going to conferences on their own. So this gives another way of doing it, because I've had some terrible conferences, some experiences, like guys trying to get into my hotel room.
Oh my God.
Like, it's hard. I don't stay at conference hotels anymore to just keep myself safe. And it's unfortunate that it's like that. And that's the thing that I'm kind of happy about having all this virtual, even though I miss seeing so many people in person. Like I miss so many people right now, but I mean, I'll take this any day to make sure everyone feels safe. And, you know, that's the most important thing right now, feeling safe and included.
Yeah.
Good question. Where should I DM you to join Women Hackers? Oh, you could just, you can DM me on LinkedIn, or you can DM me on Twitter, but you have to share your LinkedIn profile. That is part of the whole, we make sure that we don't get trolls, because we get trolls once in a while. So we try to prevent it as much as possible. And if you don't have LinkedIn, just let me know. We can figure something out. I think we had another Q&A. Can you name your favorite people to follow and which platform? I honestly, Women Hackers, WoSEC, those are definitely the ones, and I'm not biased at all, even though I'm like one of the founders of both of them. But Cyber Jetsuit is amazing. WSC is, oh my God, I love working with them. Diana Initiative is another great organization. Those are definitely my favorite ones. I just feel like they practice inclusion a lot, like inclusion all the way, and that's so powerful to see. And yeah, I really like them. Katie, any other ones?
I was on a panel when this question got asked, and one of the other panelists was just like, yeah, whoever Katie follows is who you should be following. Just like, oh, okay, better check who I'm following. I follow every single woman I see who either follows me or who posts something interesting. I automatically follow them, and then I'll be honest, whenever I follow someone, I do a quick check down the Twitter profile, make sure there's nothing. Make sure they don't have anti-SJW in their little Twitter profile, Twitter bio. But I follow people, like, if someone posts something interesting, I follow them. I assume more interesting things will come out of them. There's, I think, specific people. Oh God. Women in bug bounty. Jessie.
Jessie Kinzer is amazing.
Yes. Oh my God, she's the most inspiring.
Random deduction, you guys.
Yes, random deduction. Dawn Isabel. She's amazing. She did an Apple Watch jailbreak live, and that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen, because she wrote the jailbreak and it was completely over my head. I was like, whoa. But she's now works with Jessie on her bug bounty team. Two amazing amazing people in the bug bounty community who are doing like actively hacking.
Also, Alyssa Herrera. She's also pretty amazing too. Another good one.
I I see her a lot, and I always forget to introduce myself to her, and I catch her every single time. I'm like, oh my god, I'd like walk past her and completely forget to say hi and introduce myself.
Yeah, Alyssa's badass. She's awesome. I'm trying to see if I can get my puppies in the room because I know some of you guys have asked, can I get puppies? I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab the puppies, or the puppies are actually coming actually. Sherlock. Hold on, I have my wonderful puppies coming in the room. Sherlock, you wanna come here? And runs away. Sherlock, come here. Sherlock. Okay, I'm gonna pick her up 1 second. All right, 1 second. Sherlock, come here. I'm gonna pick you up.
I'll spend the time answering the VPS question. You don't need anything to start hacking apart from what you already use. If you use Linux, you can use your Linux setup. There's the puppy.
This is Sherlock. It's her birthday, you guys. She turned 2 years old today. No, yeah. There we go. Sherlock is on the desk like usual. Hold on. All right, and then I have Luna here. Okay. And there we go. Yeah, we're trying to catch the shoe buzz. Oh, thank you, Luna. Sherlock's like, what the hell's going on? There's too many people. Okay, now I'm just being squished by both of them. All right, Sherlock, can we come down? Okay. All right, ready? Set. Boom. Okay. And these two want to play. This is playful mode. Let's say hi, everyone. Hi, Luna. There we go. All right. Okay, you guys are gonna play. All right, you guys play around. You can see right there in the corner. Anywho, I hope that made your guys' day better and brighter. I like this person's like, this is the content I came for. Good, I'm glad.
Yeah, less of the security.
Welcome to security. We're obsessed with dogs and cats. And foxes.
I was going to say that the dogs look like quite a handful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's rough. It's rough. Anyway, well, Katie, thank you so much for staying up late. You can definitely hear my dogs are playing now, so I probably should get going and be the responsible adult to watch these little kids.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me. Love speaking. I'm a night owl. I'm fine with staying up. I don't sleep anyway. It's fine. But no, I had a great time. It's been really fun to present to everybody. Hopefully, I can do some more stuff. It'll be cool to do.
We'd love to have you anytime you want. You just let us know if you want to do a workshop.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent.
So thank you very much for having me, and thank you for everybody for listening to me. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn if you would like to. I posted my links in the chat. If you want to talk to me more, or Twitter, either is fine. If you have more questions, I'll be there. Just send me a message. So thank you for having me, and I'm going to bed. Good night.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. And if you need anything, just reach out. And yes, that is Sherlock and Luna playing still in the background. And this will be recorded and shared shortly. All right. Bye. And thank you again, Katie. This is awesome. Bye, everyone.